Well, there was Oliver Dowden talking about a range of views, including COP, looking at the view from the Labour Party now. Shadow Climate Change and Net Zero Secretary Ed Miliband joins us now from central London. Now, before we get on to COP and climate change, I just want your reaction to the allegations around bullying and Gavin Williamson. We heard there Oliver Dowden saying that Rishi Sunak still has full confidence in Gavin Williamson, that he was frustrated, he shouldn't have sent those messages, but that it was a long time ago.
These are incredibly serious issues, Sophie, and I think, you know, it really calls into question Rishi Sunak's judgment and the way he made decisions about his cabinet. We already know about the whole Suella Braverman issue, being reappointed 6 days after she resigned. It was very noticeable on your show that Oliver Dowden couldn't deny that Rishi Sunak knew about those issues to do with potential bullying against Wendy Morton, the chief whip, by Gavin Williamson, and yet he reappointed him. What it says is that Rishi Sunak was making decisions simply in his own narrow, short-term interests as far as the Conservative Party leadership was concerned, not the national interest. And there needs to be an urgent, independent investigation into exactly what happened. We can't have a cover-up, we can't have a whitewash here. What did Rishi Sunak know? When did he know it? What did Gavin Williamson do? And what are the implications of that?
Is this kind of behaviour normal? I guess, in Parliament is what I'm trying to get at. You know, is there a feeling that, you know, it's an exceptional place of work, that people get frustrated, as Gavin Williamson's defence appears to be? Or is this actually not normal at all?
Well, let's be honest, Sophie. Parliament has got a massive job to do to change our culture. I'm not denying to you that this might have happened at some point over the last few decades, that this kind of behaviour. But the point is, we've got to change. Parliament's got to change, and the example has got to be set from the top. And the point about this is that Rishi Sunak appears to have known that Gavin Williamson was engaging in this behaviour. You know, people in politics are relatively tough. The fact that Wendy Morton was making the former chief whip was making a complaint about this suggests how extreme the behaviour was. Precisely as you say, you know, there's a rough and tumble in politics, but this goes well beyond that, apparently. And it really is a matter of judgment and the basis on which Rishi Sunak makes decisions.
I also want to get your reaction to a story in The Observer saying that they believe that nurses will be voting for their first ever national strike action. Some of our viewers will be concerned about the impact that's going to have on an already stretched NHS. Do you back the nurses in their strike action?
Well, look, obviously nobody wants to see a strike go ahead, including nurses. But the truth is that this is born of incredible frustration and dismay on the part of nurses about what has happened over 12 years under this government. You know, Labour was in power for 13 years, there never was a nurses' strike. What we've seen is issues of pay, issues of recruitment, issues of morale, issues, as you showed to Oliver Dowden, about what is happening in the health service, and many nurses feel at breaking point. So nobody wants to see this strike go ahead. But as I say, it is born of frustration and distress that so many people feel in the health service about the way it has been run down over this last decade or more under the Tories.
Now, I'm keen to talk to you a little bit about COP, a big climate change summit that we're going to be seeing in Egypt. Rishi Sunak has said today he wants to see the UK made a green energy superpower. But, of course, we know that the government is, they say, prioritising offshore wind, as Oliver Dowden was saying, rather than allowing new onshore wind farms to be built. Do you have sympathy with people who may not want to see onshore wind near where they live?
Let me come to that, but let me start with the big picture. The big picture here, Sophie, for the country and the world, is that the UN has told us that the promises made in Glasgow haven't been kept. We're heading for 2.8 degrees of global warming, and obviously we're also in the midst of a global energy crisis. Now, the message that Labour would be taking to COP27, and that I will be taking at the end of this coming week when I go, is that it is now cheaper to save the world than to destroy it. And what do I mean by that? I mean that renewable power, solar, wind and other forms of zero carbon energy are cheaper than fossil fuels. And this matters so much, Sophie, because it means that at home and abroad, we need to be all in on those renewable and zero carbon alternatives. Now, that takes me to onshore wind. It is terrible what Oliver Dowden was saying on your programme earlier. He actually made some important news by saying the government was committing to carrying on with the ban on onshore wind that has been in place for the last 7 years. For your viewers at home, Sophie, that is driving up their bills. It's already driven up their bills by something like £100. It will continue to drive up their bills by £15 billion between now and 2030 if this ban remains in place. So the government is saying no to the cheapest, cleanest form of power. And by the way, it's going back on a promise that Jacob Rees-Mogg made in the brief period when he was the business secretary, where he said that they would bring the consenting regime for onshore wind in line with other infrastructure. It makes no sense, and it makes a complete joke, frankly, of Rishi Sunak, the man who couldn't even decide whether he was going to go to COP27. It makes a complete joke of the idea that he's somehow a leader on clean energy.
He also said that they will be backing some new drilling licences in the North Sea. It's an important transition, I guess, into about energy security. We will see what's happening in Russia. Just to be very clear, will Labour oppose new drilling licences in the North Sea?
Well, we do oppose them, and let me explain why. Look, the truth is, and this goes to the debate we've had about fracking, for example, the truth is that wherever we get our gas from, we pay the same price because the price is set on a European market. So this will make no difference to bills, firstly. Secondly, it will take years to come on stream. This is not cheap and it's not quick either. And thirdly, it drives a coach and horses through all the commitments we're making on climate change. Because if every country followed our lead, we'd end up with 3 degrees or more of global warming, precisely the danger that we are seeking to avoid. I agree with Alok Sharma, the outgoing COP president, on this. He said that he opposes what the government is doing. The answer, the way to cut bills, the way to give us energy security is onshore wind, offshore wind, solar. And Labour has a world-leading plan to say by 2030, all of the power that powers our electricity system will come from zero carbon sources. That's what we'd be taking to COP. We'd be saying to people, come and be part of our Clean Power Alliance so that actually we can do the right thing on bills and jobs and security and climate.
I want to talk about that commitment, because as you say, you've committed to 100% of the country's power being provided by renewables and nuclear by 2030. Now, that sounds great, but I'm just questioning whether it's achievable. Looking at nuclear, for example, it takes 5 to 10 years to build a nuclear power station. You've got to get planning signed off. Hinkley Point C was signed off in 2016, not due to open until 2026. I mean, you've only got 8 years to meet your target. 2 of them you're not going to be in power for. I mean, that's not realistic, is it?
It's stretching and it is absolutely achievable. And, you know, we had outside expert issued a whole report on showing how we would do this. And let me explain how we're going to do it. It's going to come from a combination of renewable power, absolutely crucial. You know, we're going to double onshore wind, treble solar, quadruple offshore wind, and that is absolutely doable and has been confirmed by outside experts, as I say. Nuclear, we have existing stations and we have Hinkley coming online. You're right that new nuclear beyond that will be in the 2030s. And also, crucially, something that's going to become more important, Sophie, because some of your viewers will be asking about so-called intermittency of renewable power like solar and wind. Storage will play an increasing role. So, yes, it's stretching, but we've got to do it. We can't afford not to do it. You know, it's going to take £93 billion off bills between now and 2030, this commitment. And, you know, I think it shows a Labour Party raring to go with the solutions that this country needs on the big issues we face. And in addition to that, we'll be able to create the jobs that we need. Sorry.
I'm being told by your own people that I need to speed up, so I'm doing you a favour, I promise, here, Mr. Miliband.
Oh, I want to carry on. I want
you to carry on too. Well, OK, we can then, but just to squeeze in one very final question. We know you're passionate about green energy. You drive an electric car. Have you got any guilty, un-eco-friendly habits? Do you take too many long-haul flights? Are you partial to a steak? Anything you want to get off your chest?
I don't know. Look, I'm not. The thing I would say is I'm certainly not a paragon of virtue, and I don't present myself as that. I try and do the right thing, and I think most people try and do the right thing. I just will make this point, though. You see, our vision, just sort of quickly let's make this point, our vision is of a country that actually where people have better lives as a result of the green transition. For example, our GB Energy, our publicly owned energy generation company, will create jobs and wealth in Britain, Sophie. And so my view on the green agenda is, and this is different from a decade ago when I was climate change secretary, it's the ethical choice, it's also the right economic choice, the right choice for quality of life. So I think we can improve people's quality of life as we go green.
OK, I've got to let you go. Thank you very much for being on the programme today, Mr Miliband.